Welcome back to the Subspace Games YouTube channel. So let's jump right in. The first thing I want to do is let's create, let's close the scene. Let's create a new model. Let's go to Shape, Box. Now I hope you guys understand. I know I haven't really touched on this since the beginning, but so we're not going to take time in the beginning to develop all of our assets and make everything look really wonderful. And I'm not a great artist anyways, so I don't think I could make everything look really wonderful. So I'm going to start with things on a low level, keep the expectations low. You guys look at it and think, oh man, it looks like crap. And then when I finally do put something together and it's still not all that great, but it'll be such an improvement, and you'll say, oh wow, it doesn't look too bad. So enough about that. So our springboard is just going to be a box for now. So let's set the size. So let's make it fairly large so we can play with. We don't want to have trouble hitting it with the ball. We'll adjust the size later. So we'll make it 5 units on each end and then 1 unit tall. So 5, 1, 5. The box, the name is springboard. We'll hit create. Let's go ahead and load it up. So let's go to models. We have several models now. Let's go to springboard. Okay, so that's basically what it looks like. And I may even cut that in half as far as the height. Make it a little thinner like that. All right, let's do that. Now, because of what we're doing with this object, we're going to do a couple of different things here. We're going to, first of all, for the attributes, we're going to, I'm going off the screen here. For the attributes, let's make a box sensor. So we haven't done any of these yet, but they come in handy. So we'll start with a sensor, and then we're also going to make it a collider. And then let's apply a material to it so that it doesn't look that hot pink color. Let's go ahead and do the wall materials just so it's a green color. And I think that's about it. So let's jump back over to our scene. Yes, we want to save the object. And let's throw that puppy in there. So springboard, we'll drag and drop. And there it is. Okay, so now that it's in the scene, there's a couple things I want to do. If you remember back when we were making our objects movable, we created this AI called Movable AI, and that's what made an object movable. It gives it that functionality. So let's go ahead and start off by giving it a controller, which is AI, add AI, and we're going to do Movable AI. Okay, so, and also if you remember when we were doing the Movable AI, we kind of hard-coded that the Movable AI had to be the first AI on the object. So that's why I added that first. I'm thinking about going back and fixing that because I don't like to have stuff that's so easy to break. So we'll go back and fix that at some point. Now let's also, to create the springboard functionality, let's create another AI. So let's go to our code view, nope, not main, AI model, create, let's call this, springboard AI. And there's a couple of things that we want to do. Let's add the first one, let's n bounce, so this is the amount of bounce. That's a number. We'll leave it at 0 for right now, and this is the amount of bounce. Click OK. And so we made it a sensor, and so the nice thing about sensors is that we can detect collisions. So we're going to add a handler here, and this is an object handler, and we're going to do on sensor collision. So whenever two sensors collide, we can get that. So as you noticed, I mentioned 2 sensors. What we're going to have to do is go back and add a sensor onto our ball. It's not enough that it's a dynamic object. So we're going to have to change that up. All right, so let's go ahead and cut that code out right there and paste this in. So I hope you're amazed at how easy this is, because I was certainly amazed. 3 lines of code. gets us our springboard functionality. What we're doing here is, first of all, the sensor collision, we're able to get the sensor ID of the object and then the target object. So whatever object hit the sensor, we'll be able to get that, and then its sensor ID. So the first thing we want to do is we get the y-axis of the springboard. And if you can remember back to when we talked about the sorry, I can't think right now. Back when we talked about the coordinate systems, we talked about these vectors that represent the x, y, and z axis. So we're going to get the y-axis, a vector that represents the y-axis of our object. So you know what, and I think I'm going to change this to, I had put global space here, but I think we're going to want to do local, because what's going to happen is we're going to be able to tilt this springboard so that the y-axis of the object that we're dealing with is not always going to be parallel to the y-axis of the global coordinate system. And the idea behind a springboard is that, you know, whenever something hits the top of it, it's going to apply a force straight off you know, you think of a trampoline. When you come jumping onto a trampoline, it launches you up away from the surface. We think of that as the normal. In this case, it's also represented by the y-axis. So we get that. And then we do the math, the vector scale. This is where we can scale a vector by a certain amount, and we're going to scale it by the amount of bounce that we set. And so that's going to make this vector, instead of just being this little y-axis, which is a 1 unit a vector that's been normalized, now it's suddenly going to be very large. And then we will add the linear impulse to the target object, which in this case is going to be the ball, so it'll launch the ball off. And we'll get a springboard effect. Alright, so let's go ahead and save this. Compile, make sure everything is working. Let's right click on our springboard. We're going to go to controllers, AI, and we're going to add one. This is going to be springboard AI. Now if you remember, we had to make an adjustment to our ball, so let's select the ball. Let's do the single select so we can actually get the ball. Right click, go to attributes, and make it a sensor. So we've just added a sphere sensor a sphere sensor to the ball, and there's a sensor on the springboard. So we should be all set. Let's hit save, and let's start up our game. Let's go over to runtime mode because I like that better. Okay, we missed it. Dang it. And F3 to restart, and we're too short. Okay, a little higher. But it would help if we went back into the code and we set that bounce. Remember, the bounce was set to nothing. So let's get crazy. Let's set it at 20. Let's just see what happens. Alright, so save, compile, run back over here. Load the scene, save just in case we need to, hit play, and let's launch this puppy. Oh, missed, just barely. Okay, so you can see we're going to have issues here. Okay, so it's not as crazy as I thought it was going to be. So maybe 20 units is about what we want for spring. Okay, so maybe what we need to do, instead of trying to do this, let's do what this game is designed to do. Let's launch our ball, and let's move the trampoline or the springboard to where the ball hits. So it looked like it kind of goes up and then it comes down right there. So let's launch it. Okay, so that wasn't a very good angle to see what was going on. Let's try from here. Alright, so we missed it. Let's move it back a little bit. So my daughter and I sat here and did this for a while. She was actually having a lot of fun just moving these objects around. Of course, we can't rotate the objects yet, so it's not as much fun as it could be. There we go. We got a bounce out of it. So you can see that it works. We get some bounce out of the ball, and hopefully that's going to make things a little bit more interesting. Like I said, my daughter sat there and played with it, and she had a blast. She was really enjoying, just moving the objects around, trying to hit stuff, and I know that it's going to be a lot more fun as we get more objects in here, and we can start rotating things. Right now, it's a little difficult because when you want to do something, these pillars are angled in a certain direction, so it makes it hard to hit the surface that you need to hit and everything. So we'll fix all that. Anyways, there's the springboard. The next thing I want to do is really fast. Let's make these walls a little bit higher so we don't launch the ball way over the top. So to do that, we'll stop the game. We'll load the scene again. And let's just start picking these walls, and we're going to go into the attribute editor, and we're going to scale it in the Y direction. Let's scale it by like 3 times. Is that going to be high enough? Oops. Let's switch over to this view so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, that should give us some pretty good height for now. So I'm going to pause this video, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust all these walls so I don't run out of time, so I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back. I raised all the walls up, and I even... yeah, it looks a little weird right now. I even put a ceiling on there. And so you're going to think, well, what the heck? But the reason why I put a ceiling on there is because I want to start getting to where, we are having an actual play space that's a little more realistic. So I put a ceiling on there. Now, the one thing that we're going to have to deal with is the fact that as we deal with the overhead cam, we're not going to be able to see what's going on. Right now I'm just trying to locate my lights. Okay, there's my lights. Okay. So let's see what happens if we run the game. Let's put it into texture mode here. So as you can see, we go to overhead cam view, and it's pretty boring. So what we want to do now, let's just take a second and let's change things up and get the ability to use the overhead cam back. Let's stop the scene. Let's go back to, let's load our scene. Let's go to the ceiling here. I'm going to edit the selection tag, or the tag. We're going to call this ceiling. Now, hopefully my video doesn't go too long. This is more than I was planning on doing originally. So actually, let me pause this for a second. I'm going to set up the next step. Okay, I'm back. So what we did is, first of all, I changed ceiling to a capital C to be more consistent with what I've been doing so far. And then on this toggle camera function within the AimCam AI, this is where we're toggling back and forth. I just created this little section here where we grab the ceiling and then we just set the visibility of the ceiling to true if we're not going to be in overhead mode. And then if we are in overhead mode, then we have this one that says set it to false. So if we jump over to the level and we load it, let's go to textured mode and play. You can see that there's ceiling up there. Now the lighting's not that great, but you can see the ball goes up and hits the ceiling and it comes back down, and we got lucky and hit the trampoline. But yet if I go to overhead mode, you don't see the ceiling. Now we know that the ceiling is still there because if I click the button now, you can see the ball come up and ricochet off the ceiling. So the ceiling's there, it'll still interact with the ball, but we can see through it because we've set up that functionality there. Feel free to stop by my site, subspacegames.com. Also, you may have noticed that I did a video for Corona SDK. I'm probably going to start doing that a little bit along on the side just because I'm curious to see how it works. So it won't be in this set of videos, but it'll be on my channel. So feel free to jump over there and take a look at what the 2D engine looks like. Different companies, but I think they work well together. They're both Lua. And they both do a lot of physics and things like that, so they're both very easy to use. Anyways, thanks for coming to the video here, and I thought this was going to be short, but it turned out to be a little bit long, and thanks for your patience.